Hello, everyone. So, as you know, I'm Wanda Payton.
And I'm Suzanne Jessica Arriaga, and I first want to apologize for my voice. I'm a little sick, so I'm going to try and make it through, and hopefully I won't have a coughing fit, but if I do, I will mute myself. Just to say that right off the bat.
Sometimes she may start a sentence and I'll finish it, but she's here. She's a trooper. So tonight we're so excited. We're going to be presenting week 4. This is a great topic for myself, for anybody who really got deep into this in the preparation, conquering negative emotions. And I had mentioned this to my daughter, and she said, Mom, you know, you never can really conquer it. The more you try, sometimes, and she just got right into it. Sometimes you focus too much on it, but we can certainly talk about how we manage it. So let's get started. First thing I want to do is set an intention for tonight's class. You know, each week before we get started, we do that. Just take a moment and please, with me, just set an intention for our time together. You know, time together, it's really precious. I never take it for granted. And you all have come together here tonight for a reason. We honor that. And I'd like for you to say to yourself or think to yourself, what is it that you would like to walk away with? What ideas, practices, what feeling would you like to walk away with tonight? And while you're doing that, I'm just going to state my intention. And my intention is just to continue to build a sense of community for sharing and supporting one another. Really important. While we begin to focus in on processes and strategies which will really support us in conquering or managing any negative emotions and that you may have tonight or may have had. But we know life's in session. Stuff's going to happen. And before we know it, you know, we're dealing with negative emotions. So hopefully that you'll walk away tonight with something that you can use to manage your emotional energy in 2017. Suzanne, would you like to express your intention?
Yeah, I want to say I agree with what you're saying, Wanda, but I can also say I've had a tough week emotionally, and I can tell you that's why I'm sick. So this is like the perfect topic on how I probably should have worked a little bit more with my emotions to not get to this point. So I want everyone to remember that it's difficult, even though we know what to do. Listen to me. Even though we know what to do, we need to reinforce it to continually, you know, keep our negative emotions in check and put them over to the positive, because if you don't, you'll end up like me right now.
Well, and sometimes, you know, just that's a sense of community. When one person is having a rough week, maybe somebody else is having, you know, a pretty good week. And that's why we wanted to have that closed Facebook group where we can encourage one another. I'm just really hoping that people will open up to their vulnerabilities and just say, anybody have anything to say, because I'm having a tough week. And we don't come on this call as experts. We are human just like everyone else. We're women who have challenges in our own personal lives. And so it just really feels good to have other people saying, hey, I don't have the answer for you, but I'm sending you my love. I know you'll get through this. So that's what I say to you, Suzanne, and everybody else that may have had a tough week this week.
Yep. Well, I feel like this is perfect, so I'm going to be teaching exactly what I need to learn better. So let's start off with a little bit of housekeeping again. Just want to remind everybody that we will be recording, but we won't be recording any of the private interactions when we're sharing our personal thoughts, etc. And the recordings will be available the following Monday or before, and we will email them to you, and then they'll also be on the Facebook page. And then, of course, be respectful of other people's perspective. And the more you participate, the more you receive. So please take a moment if you can, to participate during our interaction sessions, because that makes it better for everybody when we hear from people. And then lastly, be conscious of your background noises. If you're driving or you have a busy background, like my puppy, so I'll probably be muting myself every time Wanda talks. Please make sure you place your phone on mute or hit *6, and then please remember to unmute when you want to speak as well. So that's our little housekeeping again. So we wanted to start out with asking you, how did last week's exercise go? Does anyone want to share?
First of all, how many did it? How many actually did the exercise? Be honest. We know you're busy, busy people. But if you did, you can just let us know or put it in the chat, either way.
And then maybe if you didn't do the exercises, because I know the exercises were kind of involved, did you start to actually think about your thoughts?
I did it, but I wasn't sure if I did it correctly. It was a little bit difficult. I don't know what
the exercises?
Yeah, it's the law of attraction tool, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. So do we just fill out my ideal and just anything on that blank?
Yeah. Go ahead, Wanda.
What part did you what was confusing to you?
Well, I didn't know if the whole thing was, so, if there was like a right way to do it.
Well, I would say that the right way to do it is your way to do it. I think what the exercises were trying to do was, for an example, the one exercise that had you focus on what good stuff was showing up in your life. Do you remember that worksheet?
Uh-huh.
Did any,
So,
and this is for you. This is just for you to begin to feel the shift. Like when you start to fill that out, it's not about the exercise. It's about saying, oh, this happened and that happened. And my even the little things. Oh, my son wanted to take a picture in front of a flowering tree, which was so cute, Hannah, on Facebook. That was adorable. But being able to really write down, which in order to write it down, you got to think about it. In order to think about it, you have to focus on it. And so that whole exercise was, I think, created to uplift your spirit and what you're thinking about. So what it does is it helps you to think about things that feel good. And when you think about things that feel good, then you feel better and you feel good. It kind of uplifts your, your vibration, so to speak. So that's what that one was all about.
You're talking about the abundantness page, right?
Say it again.
The abundance page. Today I played my abundance. Okay.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And a lot of people think abundance is money. It's just money. It can be money, of course. But when you think about abundance, I want you to start thinking about, you have an abundance of friends, abundance of family, abundance of time, or abundance of maybe quiet time, which is abundance. Abundance. So abundance comes in many different forms. And when you start thinking about the abundance that you have in some form, even though it may or may not be money, you have an abundance of air right now. You can breathe really, I hope, most of you don't have trouble breathing. So it's an abundance of air. You get to drink as much water as you need. So it's abundance of water, an abundance of love from your kids or your significant others. So when you start thinking about what you do have abundance for, what happens is you first of all think, I didn't even consider that as abundance, but now I'm thinking about that as abundance. And then it has a tendency to overflow into other areas like money and, prosperity. So those exercises really were created for some very quiet time for you guys to just set aside and really think about what's showing up in your life, what are your statements that you're making, and I promise you, once the shift starts taking place where you're conscious of what you're thinking and saying, you're going to see little sprouts of, just like when you plant in your garden, you see little things, little flowering start to pop up. And you write it down, and then when you write it down, you acknowledge it, and then more shows up. It's a very cool exercise.
It's so very true. And I like to say you'll see blue butterflies. I did an exercise like this once in the past where I set out to see blue butterflies of all things. I mean, who sees a blue butterfly? And then once I opened up my mind to the world, I saw blue butterflies everywhere. I actually saw physical blue butterfly, blue butterfly. But then I also saw a blue butterfly on the jeans, pants of my favorite little granddaughter. So it was like the universe was showing me, you know, that there's abundance out there and what to be grateful for. So I think it's really, this abundance is really gratitude for what we do have and seeing what we do have instead of always being in a state of lack is what it was trying. That was the purpose kind of the exercise. And there's no right or wrongs on what your desires are. Those are your desires, and hopefully they kind of go along with what the goals are that you start to develop through the other practices that we did in the prior weeks.
Thank you for asking that question, Hannah. I appreciate it.
Oh, no problem.
So, did anybody actually think about their thoughts? And I know somebody did because we had a conversation about it. Lori, do you want to share? Or if you're there? Maybe she's not.
Yeah,
oh, there she is.
She is.
Okay.
I'm here. We talk about so much stuff that I'm like, what did I share?
Well, you were telling me that you were like really recognizing your thoughts, that you really hadn't noticed so much your thoughts before.
Yeah, and I think I can get so caught up just in the day-to-day, just going through it without really responding, but just like on autopilot, and just needing to stop and correct myself and think that's not the direction I want to go, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like catching yourself saying things that maybe aren't in your best interest or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Well, good stuff.
Yeah, good stuff. I mean, it when you start to really take a look at your thoughts, it can actually be kind of overwhelming because you realize you have so many thoughts, and then you're thinking about your thoughts, which is a weird thing as well. But you just want to be cognizant of those thoughts that you keep having over and over again. Like, I can't do this, I don't do this, I don't want to do this, and things that may not even be true, or this always happens, or this never happens. That's the thing that you kind of want to, key into and then try and switch those over to the positive. I got a cough.
Okay. I'm going to go now, and we're going to move on to the next slide. So let's get started with today's topic, conquering negative emotions. As you all know, our series of webinars have been really focusing in on harnessing our physical and emotional energy in 2017. And so far, we've covered setting goals in an effort to support us, having a roadmap, and a plan of action as we move forward this year. We've also covered the power of our thinking and how the law of attraction plays into what we are really attracting into our lives. So tonight we're covering conquering negative emotions, which Suzanne and I really felt was a necessary component to harnessing emotional energy. So first of all, what are negative emotions? So negative emotions can be described as, and this is what we're talking about tonight, any feeling which causes you to be miserable and sad. These emotions make you dislike yourself and others and take away your confidence. So the primary emotions that we deal with on a day-to-day basis are anger, fear, fright, grief, joy, worry, and pensiveness. The symptoms of negative emotions. Well, and Noelle Stern, in her book, Trust Your Life, Forgive Yourself, and Go After Your Dreams, she writes and asks these questions. Do you wake up in the morning regretting what you did or said yesterday? Anybody? Do you dread today, wanting to be somewhere else doing something else? Or are you depressed about tomorrow, convinced that nothing will change? Or are you stuck in the past, feeling victimized? She also asked, do you spend too much time condemning yourself about what you could have had or should have done differently? Or do you feel stuck in your job or your career, your activities, your life? Or do you yearn for more, even if you don't know what that more is? Do you suspect you've got something more to give, even if you can't identify it? Are you sure it's somewhere inside of you, but you can't seem to find it or let it get out? Also, negative emotions are found in things like regret, negative self-talk, as we discussed last week, fear of the future, overwhelm. That's a big one that a lot of my clients deal with. Jealousy, loneliness, and of course there's more.
And did you know that studies have shown that negative emotions are linked to the creation of an inflammation in the body, which makes them the root of many disease processes. They lower the immune function and deregulate the endocrine system. Toxic emotions like guilt, shame, anger, self-loathing, regret, bitterness, resentment actually embed themselves deep inside ourselves, just like I told you last time about that book, The Biology of Belief. It's a book you guys should definitely read. They become the enemy within, and they acidify your life and your body, poisoning relationships, undermining your health, and causing all kinds of self-sabotage. It can actually cause illness, and I can actually say that I was so overwhelmed last week. I know that's why I'm sick this week, because of my puppy and everything else I was trying to do, and I just let my emotions go negative, and here I ended up being sick. And I'm like, the perfect night to be teaching this, because I'm the perfect example of what can happen if you don't really control your negative emotions. They can literally make you sick, and not just sick like with a cold, like what I have, but sick with inflammation and other more horrible diseases. Yeah. So what does anger actually do to your body? The adrenal glands flood the body with stress hormones. I'm sure you've all heard of adrenaline and cortisol and how they're not good for your body. So the brain shunts blood away from our stomach, which they say is our second brain and is very important in our health, and puts all the energy towards the muscles in preparation for physical exertion, because we think, that we have to have that fight or flight mechanism. So our heart rate goes up, our blood pressure goes up, our respiration increases, our body temperature rises, and we can start to perspire when we're angry. So being angry really affects the body and is very toxic, or can be very toxic.
Now, here's an interesting,
good news is, Wanda.
Here's an interesting side note, is that there is an upside to anger as well. Even though prolonged and focused anger can have a detrimental effect on our body, research finds that anger also has a positive side. And everyone on this call and everyone who will be listening knows that anger can have a positive effect. When you think about Mothers Against Drunk Driving, how that whole movement came out of grief and came out of anger and negative emotions. But what they did was, and this next point, they used it as a motivating force. You sometimes hear people talking about using anger, that it motivated them, turning anger into positive energy. In fact, anger itself is kind of a positive energy and a powerful motivating force in it itself. If you use it correctly, if you don't just dwell on it, but let it take you somewhere to accomplish something. So research has shown that anger can make us push on towards the goals in the face of problems and barriers. I know that there have been many YouTube videos and motivational speakers where people have come through horrific accidents, and all of the fear and all of the anger, even in situations where someone has done something to them, and then they begin to create a movement so it won't happen to someone else, and they put all that energy into something positive so that they can receive emotional relief and make a difference in this life. So anger can be a motivating force. Also, Suzanne,
angry people, believe it or not, can be more optimistic. And that may sound crazy, but angry people have something in common with happy people. That's because both of them tend to be more optimistic. One study of fear of terrorism after the 9/11 terrorist attacks showed that those that experienced anger expected fewer attacks in the future. In contrast to those who experienced fear, they were more pessimistic about the future, and then they expected further attacks. So that tells me that being angry is better than being fearful, especially if you can use it as a motivating force to do something.
Absolutely. It's a higher emotion. We're going to talk about the emotional ladder down the line here. Also, anger can benefit relationships. Yes, anger can benefit relationships. Anger is a natural reaction to being wronged by someone else and hurt by someone else. And it's a way of communicating that sense of injustice. But society has told us that anger is dangerous and we should hide it. However, what does this do to our personal relationships? So the expression of anger, if justifiable, and also these are the two components. If it's justifiable and aimed at finding a solution rather than just venting. Have you ever just been around people who just want to vent, but they don't want to go anywhere with it? It's not motivating. They just want to talk. And when you try to get into solution, or they don't want to talk about solution, they just want to vent. Well, those people, their words burn my ears. I just can't. I can't do it. This morning in my condo, I was coming back from my walk. I just thought about this. And this woman pulls around the corner. She was leaving for work. And she slowed up, and she rolled her window down, and she said, hi. She said, are you a homeowner? And I said, yes. And she said, why are they cutting all the trees down? I just hate that. They're cutting all the trees. We don't have enough trees as it is. And we don't have enough flowers around here. And it's just cutting the trees. And I said, are they cutting them or are they pruning them? Every year they prune them and they cut them back. And she said, oh, I don't know. Maybe they're pruning them. She had no place to go with her discontent. And I said, girl, we have so much more in this day that can concern us. These trees, they're going to be just fine. And we laughed, and then I went on back. I could not let her put her energy about something that's not even valid. They're not cutting the trees down. They're pruning them on me. So that's an example about what anger or negative emotions can do.
That's crazy. So what can we do about these negative emotions that everybody has from time to time? The first thing we can do is we can recognize, and we talked about this last week, by recognizing the power of our emotions, which comes from the power of our thoughts. We like to think of ourselves as highly rational beings, but let's face it, and I know this is true for me, usually we're not always that rational, right? We make impulsive decisions every day based on how we feel. We've all said and done things in the heat of the moment that we later regret. I'm sure, I know I have. But being aware of how much influence our emotions have over our lives is the first step to taking charge of them. So recognizing the power of our emotions and the impact they've had on our lives is the first step to recognizing doing something about our negative emotions.
So true. So true. That woman, had she really understood the power of her emotions, would have thought about, is it really worth this energy that I'm going to expend to stop this woman that I don't even know, to complain about some trees that are even being cut down, and then launch my day into that? Because God only knows what the rest of her day was going to be like. So understanding the power of emotions is number one. Number two, emotions don't always represent the truth. And that is written wrong. It should be emotions with an S. But it doesn't always represent the truth. Just because we feel a certain way doesn't make it reality, as this lady. For example, we might feel that we're a failure, or that we're unloved, or that we're stupid. I know Les Brown, the motivative speaker, he talks all the time. I mean, that's the core of his motivational speaking, how he was told he was a twin, and how he was told in elementary school that he was educationally dysfunctional, or I had a term for it, and they put him back, I think, from the 4th grade to the 3rd grade, or the 3rd grade to the 2nd grade. And he never, for years it took him to get over that. He was just totally broken down inside. But he wasn't stupid, and he wasn't retarded, as they used to use that word back in the day. It wasn't true. So our feelings color our perception of reality. And we need to understand, however, that these feelings can misrepresent the actual and often less gloomy state of affairs.
And then the next way to do something about our negative emotions is to avoid toxic people. I'm sure you've heard that we're the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. It isn't a scientific fact, but I've heard this many times, but it's a principle that holds true in general. We usually make about the same amount of money as the 5 people we hang out with. We have about the same disposition as the 5 people we hang out with. So if we hang out with toxic, angry, grumpy, discouraging people, eventually we're going to become like them. It's really difficult to be in control of our emotions when we spend a lot of time with people who push our buttons in the wrong way. And I'm sure you guys, I know couple people like this, and I'm sure you guys too, and it's very important to try to avoid these people to control your emotions, especially if they're the ones that actually press your buttons. You know, some people can say something to you and you just say, oh, whatever, you don't even listen to them. Another person says it and you're like, oh my God, I am stupid. So you need to stay away from those people that are toxic in your life.
I know.
If at all possible.
If you live with a person like that, it might be a little bit more difficult. So you have to find other processes or strategies to deal with that. But certainly outside of your home, when you have a chance to choose who to hang out with, avoid toxic people. Then number 4, ask for support. That's why I love coaching. I love coaching, because I want to support and uplift and give people good information when I can. I don't know it all, but there is a gift, an intuitive guidance, a connection with spirit that helps me do that. If we want to make any significant change in our lives, we'll need the support of people closest to us. However, Taking charge of our emotions definitely falls in that category. But maybe you're in a difficult situation where someone close to you is the person who is a negative influence in your life. And I know that's certainly been the case in my life many years ago. And I'll just tell you, it was my first husband. I'll just say straight out. A very negative person. In that case, you could try to say to this person, I want to make a change in my life, and I really need your support. You're very important to me, and I really care about you deeply. But if you're not going to be able to support me, I think we need to limit our interactions. This might seem harsh, but it's necessary for your own personal growth and development.
And then the next way we can try to manage our negative emotions or conquer them is to use words to feel better. As we learned last week, our thoughts become our words, and words are very powerful. And we can harness that power to change our emotional state, though. When we're feeling down, we need to train ourselves to use our words to improve or even transform our situation rather than merely describe it. So, for example, if you're feeling disappointed, you could choose to say, I'm going to try again, and I'm going to be successful this time around. This will make you feel much better and much more empowered to use words that are positive to describe your situation instead of saying something like, I failed, I'm not cut out for this, I'm a loser. So yes, we're all going to have instances where things don't go our way or we don't do everything exactly right. So if we use positive words and say, I'm going to try again and I'm going to be successful this time, rather than saying negative words like I failed and I can't do this and I'm a loser. It takes discipline, and that's why we have to be aware of our thoughts in order to practice this. But if we can cultivate this habit, it'll really, really help to switch our emotions from those negative ones to more positive ones. Because stuff's going to happen. Like Wanda says, life in session, stuff happens. It's just how we can switch our mind, even in a negative situation, to see the positive that can come out of it.
My brother
our words.
Is, I think, one of the funniest people on the planet. I mean, he's not a professional comedian, but he said one time, just because someone calls you a dog doesn't mean you need to bark. I'm like, oh, okay. Okay, that's pretty simplistic. And then number 6, and I used this one this week already. It's in communication. It's not what we say that matters. It's what people hear. And I don't know if Wanda's on the line, but we had a coaching session today about a book called Fierce Conversations by Suzanne. I can't think of her last name at the moment. But communication, it's so important. When we're constantly frustrated and angry at work or home with coworkers, what people really hear us saying, even though we maybe didn't verbalize it, is I don't like my job and I don't like being around people like you. Now, we didn't say those words, but if your emotion, that's the underlying message that gets conveyed if you're constantly feeling frustrated or angry at work. When we're frequently impatient with our family members, really what they hear us saying is, I refuse to be nice to you because you're not important to me. And that's a pretty simplistic statement. But sometimes, they say you always hurt the one you love. And sometimes we, in our family, are less tolerant to our family members than we would be to someone outside of our family. And so what is that underlying message when we are less tolerant? That's not what we really mean. That's not what we're trying to convey to them. But that might be what they're hearing. And once we become conscious of the indirect and unintended messages we communicate every time we fail to control our negative emotions, we realize the importance of exercising self-control in this area. I had a chance to use this with my daughter this week. Something that I was going to say at the wrong time, it wasn't going to be received well, and even though my words may have said one thing, but I thought about if I was on the other end of that comment, how would I feel? So we are responsible for the underlying message. This was huge for me this week.
Well, and that brings us to our next process, is wait 2 seconds before responding. It's amazing, just like Wanda said, how big of a difference just taking 2 or 3 seconds to think about what we're going to say before we respond when we're upset, what a difference that can make. Every time we respond immediately or instinctually to an unkind remark, our words usually reek of spite or malice, or we're going to say something crummy back to that person, right? But on the other hand, we intentionally wait a couple seconds before replying. It's probably more likely that we're going to not lash back at them, or we're not going to say something that's going to make the situation worse. So waiting those 2 seconds and thinking before we respond is key.
And then number 8, really important. We talked about this last in a couple of other sessions, and I think the lead-up session to the 12 course series, and we're going to be talking about it next week. It's essential that we take care of our physical needs. That's including sleep, exercise, nutrition. If we want to be emotionally stable, we cannot slight any of these.
Especially sleep. So then the last thing we can do is to ask ourselves, what is one thing I can do right now? When we're in an emotionally distressed state, sometimes it's helpful to be alone with our thoughts rather than lashing out, right? This is because it's all too easy to allow ourselves to wallow in self-pity or to become overwhelmed with fear or hatred. Instead, we should ask ourselves, what can I do? We don't want to wallow. What can I do right now? It's not an attempt to ignore our problems, but it's a way to take our minds off our problems temporarily so we can gain some perspective on our circumstances. Additionally, taking action often changes our emotions in ways that thinking would never be able to do. And one key thing that I like to do, and when I can, is if you're upset, take a quick little walk. Change your scenery, you know?
Yes.
And just taking that little break kind of goes along with the taking 2 seconds, you're taking more like 2 minutes, 10 minutes, can actually make something that seems emotionally distressing. By the time you come back from your walk, you're like, oh, okay. I guess I'm not really as upset as I thought I was from that phone call I just had.
You know, Tony Robbins, 2 things that I recall on this topic: changing your physiology. So if you're upset and you try to smile, you cannot smile and be upset at the same time. You just can't do it. Try it. Try being really mad and smiling. The physiology changes us emotionally. So I remember him saying that, and then the taking the walk reminded me of that. So when we walk proud or chest up, head back, looking up, it changes how we feel inside, or it affects it. So if you really want to manage your emotional energy, there's processes and that you can engage upon, and then if you really understand the benefit of shifting your energy, that at the end of the day, not only are you going to feel better, but you're going to make better choices, and you're going to have a clearer
vision of the possible solution to whatever the issue is. It will become clear and unclouded as your emotion is controlled. So these processes are ways to give yourself what I call emotional relief. Emotional relief. If you got a headache, you might feel like you need to take Tylenol, aspirin to give yourself physical relief from the pain. But how do we give ourselves emotional relief when we're angry, when we're disappointed, when we're scared? So these are some processes that we can engage in. There are some solutions to that. So I love this class. Thank you, Suzanne, for helping me come up with these strategies and presenting this today. That's our presentation tonight on conquering negative emotions. And we sincerely hope that you're able to take away some ideas and processes tonight which will support you in managing any negative emotions that you may currently have or may have had or may come up next week. So,
Any questions, comments, ahas, anybody? I'll do one because I can safely say that I'm sick now because I had a little bit of overwhelm last week, a little bit of negativity with overwhelm with my puppy and everything. So that part, and here I wrote a book about it, but still I tried to get sleep, but I couldn't because of the puppy. But it just makes me realize how really important that sleep portion is. That's my aha. You can do everything else right, but if you don't get the sleep right, you really need the sleep to be in your best emotional state. That's my aha. Anybody
Absolutely.
else?
Did anybody? Oh, Hannah.
It was avoid negative people.
Oh,
Well, this whole session was basically because this is mostly what I try to keep practicing throughout my entire time, even in school, high school, in the younger years, because I always know being around negative people, you always go through some negative things that's unnecessary that you don't have to, necessarily go through. So I always, it's really easy for me. So it's just kind of supporting everything that I've been doing. So, it feels good that I'm going the right direction.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And just, I'm going to say that I was talking to a client this week about someone that they worked for or with, and very toxic person, extremely toxic. And so as we're going through this, I can see where anger was appropriate. This person not only was toxic, but was unfair, was kind of a tyrant. And sometimes when you're around a tyrant in any situation, anger feels like it's the natural reaction. So I just want to express again that if anger comes up on situations in your life, just make sure it's directed towards solution. It's directed towards...
And that makes me... Well, I was also thinking... Go ahead, Wanda, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, thinking about toxic people, if you're around a toxic person in one place in your life, I could see how that can affect you in other parts of your life too, if you don't learn to deal with that, So that's kind of another aha with me as well.
Yes. Anybody else?
Okay then. Thanks
for
sharing, Hannah. And
Lori's got.
I was just going to chime in on toxic people. I've had like a really rough week at work with actually the owner of our company being like really just unprofessional and unacceptable. But I have to remember it's like those are his issues, but you just have to, like for me, I know it's going to be looking for a new job just to keep myself out of that. And I think you just have to continuously protect yourself and stay away from those people. But if you can just focus on yourself and making yourself better and saying this is completely unacceptable, I'm not going to stay in this type of situation, and moving towards that goal.
Exactly.
Definitely.
Exactly. That was the
Yeah.
piece about using it to better your position and not just to vent.
Exactly.
That was awesome. Anyone else? Okay, good stuff.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody, for sharing.
Yes. Well, and then as always, you'll be getting your workbook exercise on the Facebook group and then also in an email. And this week, we're going to kind of be asking you to kind of look at a time that happens in the next week or that's happened recently where you felt like you had to work on conquering your negative emotions and how you were able to do that and what steps you took to do that. So it's kind of a journaling exercise this week. And then there will also be an energy note that should be helpful. That will be up on Facebook and then also emailed out to you as well.
All right, before we close, I wanted just to say that congratulations on taking the first step to mastering your energy, to reaching your goals in 2017. Yay, let's party! But also,
party Gumbies.
we will be, we've been sick this week. Well, I haven't been physically sick, but I have a sick granddaughter, and Suzanne's been, as she's shared, she's been sick this week. So we were not able to reach out to you for your coaching sessions. But I was telling Hannah that next week, Monday and Tuesday, we have time available between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. If you would like to talk to one of us for a 30-minute complimentary coaching assessment of where you're at, and this relates back to week 1, Goals 101. We would love to open ourselves up for that. What we'd like for you to do is we're going to send you an email with these times, 10 to 1 on Monday, 10 to 1 on Tuesday. And we'd like for you to respond back as to which is your number 1 preferred time and day. And then if someone else got their email back to us and, you know, schedule that time and you're not able to get that time, what would be your secondary preferred time? So it would be 10 a.m. on Monday to 1 and 10 a.m. Tuesday to 1. If neither of those days work, however, just let me know and we'll work out another date for you. But those,
work it out,
we're going to try to get them, those, all of the, there's 10 people, we're going to try to get those 30-minute coaching sessions in those 2 days. Okay, so yes, we are so proud of you guys. As you embark upon your next week, maybe collectively set an intention for each other that where there may be pain and negative emotions, that some of the processes and solutions we discussed today will come to mind, and you'll be able to activate them and find emotional relief. Thank you so much for being here, you guys, tonight, and for your participation. We just honor that. We hope that you've been blessed because you've certainly blessed us. We'll see you next Thursday at 6 p.m. for our 5th topic, which will be self-care through exercise, sleep, water, and food. So before we say goodnight, we'd like to just do another group affirmation. I'm going to count to 3, and let's say together our affirmation. So 1, 2, 3. All of the power I need to create a life I love is inside of me. Yay!
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 Everybody.
Awesome. Love you guys. God bless each and every one of you. Have a great week.
And look for that email tonight or
Thank
early
you.
tomorrow, and next week's going to be awesome. Have a
Thank
great week,
you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.